Hello guys, this is Deepika from MyTutorialRack.com. In this tutorial, we will talk about Salesforce Object Query Language, which is also called as SOQL. So you already know that you should use SOQL when you know which object the data resides in. So if you're familiar with that, okay, if the data resides in a particular object, then you can use SOQL, and you want to retrieve the data from a single object or multiple objects that are related to one another. So the main difference between using a SOSL and SOQL is that in the case of SOQL, you can retrieve data from either a single object or multiple objects, but those objects needs to be related to one another. But in the case of SOSL, you can look for a particular data across multiple objects. They does not have to have any relationship in between them. As you've already seen in the previous examples, we have looked for a data inside of the two objects. One was the account object, and then we had was the customer object, and these two objects were not related to each other. You can use SOQL when you have to count the number of records that meet the specific criteria. So let's say if you wanted to count how many records are there with the customer name as Deepika. So you can go ahead and do that using SOQL. If you want to sort the results as part of the query, so let's say you wanted to go ahead and order the results by the last name, you can do that using SOQL. If you wanted to retrieve the data from a number field or from a date field or a checkbox field, etc., you can use SOQL. So these are the places where you can use SOQL. SOQL is very similar to the SQL select statement if you're familiar with. If in the other programming languages, there's something called as SQL select. This SOQL is very similar to the select statement, but this SOQL is designed to search for Salesforce data. So that is the main purpose of the SOQL, is to search for the Salesforce data. Now, in which environment you can use SOQL? So you can run SOQL statements in the query string parameter in the query call. You can run it in the Apex statements. You can use it inside the Visualforce controller and the getter methods. You can also do it in the schema explorer of the force.com ID. So these are the different places where you can use the SOQL statement. You can use it in the Apex statements, Visualforce controller, etc. So these are the places and these are the environments where you can use SOQL. Now, as I already told you, that SOQL is very similar to the SQL select statement, but it does not support all the features of the SQL select command. For example, you cannot use SQL to perform arbitrary join operations. You cannot use SQL to use using the wildcards in the field list. So if you remember, in SQL select, we can say something like select star from so and so table, and it will go ahead and fetch all the feeds from that table. But in the case of SOQL, you cannot do something like that. You cannot use wildcards in the field list or use calculation expressions. So these are some of the restrictions when you're using in SOQL as compared to the SQL select statement. So let's say we wanted to go ahead and fetch a particular record, particular fields of a record from a particular table or from a particular object. So let's say this particular example here, select is the main keyword that we have to use. ID, so we are telling which of the fields we wanted to retrieve. We want to retrieve the ID field and the name field. And then we are specifying from, that's another clause here, from account. So we have to specify what's the name of the table or the object that we wanted to search for. So if you're searching for this particular account, if you're searching for an account record, so this is what the select statement looks like. So we have the fields that you want to retrieve, then from which object you wanted to search the data, and what if there is any where clause, means if there is any conditional expression. So you're only looking for somebody with the name of Yura Rathor. So this is what you are looking for. So this is a select query example. You're looking for select ID name from account where the name is equals to, and whatever the name is, you're specifying in the single quotes. So let's say I wanted to go ahead and run this query. So you can go back to your developer console here, and you can say something like, let's say, and if I go back to my developer account, and let's say we go to the sales here, and we wanted to go ahead and find out all the accounts which are all accounts here. Okay, so let's say we have to look for all the accounts which have the name United in them. Okay, this is what we wanted to search, and we wanted to search the ID and the name. If you wanted to search for billing state or province, you can do that. If you wanted to find the phone number, you can do that. So let's go ahead and do an example of the select query. So we'll go back. So we're going to go to the query editor and we'll say select. What columns you wanted to select? You wanted to select the ID column, the name column. If you want the phone, you can specify from which object, from the account object. So this query will return you all the account records. So if there is no restriction, this is going to give you every row available in the account object. So let's say if you go ahead and execute this, so what's going to do? It's going to go ahead and fetch the 13 records that we have under the account table. So let's say now if you wanted to go ahead and look for a particular account where the name is equals to, let's say the name is equals to University of Arizona. So this is what I wanted to go ahead and fetch. So now if you go ahead and remove this where clause, what will happen is it's going to go ahead and return you all the results from the account object. Now, if you go ahead and specify a particular where clause where you'll specify where the name is equals to, and you provide the name here, then it will only go ahead and fetch the record which meets the criteria, and the criteria is University of Arizona. So it will only going to fetch that particular account where the name is University of Arizona, and which the fields it returned back the ID field and the name field. So let's say if you also have added the phone field, then it will go ahead and return the phone field as well, depending upon what fields you have specified here. But if you try to use something like a while character here, this is not going to work, because this will say unknown error parsing query, because this is cannot use a while characters in the field set. So that's why we cannot do it. So we are going to specify which columns you wanted to retrieve back from the query. Now, this is what the SQL syntax looks like. SOQL syntax looks like. As you already know, the first thing we have to specify is the select. That is the main clause. Select, it's a required clause whenever you're writing a SOQL. And then you have multiple optional clauses like type of, and then where, data category, group by, etc. We're going to take a look at all of these now. But this is what this SOQL syntax looks like. So select, then you're specifying which fields you wanted to retrieve. If you have a subquery, you can specify the subquery here as well. The type of, this is important when we have like a relationship between the objects and we wanted to go ahead and have polymorphic view. So we'll talk about type of also. From object type. So what is the name of the object? So let's say we were looking for account records. So the object type was account. Let's say we wanted to fetch the records from the contact table, then the object type will be contact. If you're fetching the records from an opportunity table, you're going to go ahead and specify the object type as opportunity, using the scope and filter scope. So if you wanted to go ahead and filter the results, you can go ahead and do that. Where the conditional expression. So let's say if you were only looking for the accounts in United States, let's say. So you can specify that where country is equals to United States, or where the name starts with the letter United. So you can specify your restrictions in this where category. So let's go ahead and talk about each of these now. So let's start with the field list subquery. Now, as you already seen, the field list subquery will specify the list of one or more fields separated by the commas that you want to retrieve from the specific object. So the field list is this one. So whatever the fields that you have specified here, this is what the field list is. So you have specified the ID, name, phone. So whatever fields you wanted to go ahead and return back from the query, that's what the field list is used for. The most important point to remember here is you must specify the field valid names and also must have read level permissions to the each specific field. So if the user does not have the permission to view the phone number, then he is not going to see the phone number, even though you have specified field list as one of the phone number as one of the field. The field list defines the ordering of the fields in the query result. So let's say if I go ahead and change my order. So let's say if I go back and right now, first the ID is displayed, then the name, and then the phone number. So let's say if I go ahead and instead of the ID as the first field, let's say I go ahead and specify ID after the phone and then the name. So the order in which you have mentioned in the field list, the same order the results is going to be. So if you're going to go ahead and specify something like this, so the first thing would be phone, then would be ID, and the third column is of name. So this is what the field list is for. So let's do another example. So let's go ahead. If you wanted to go ahead and select the ID, the name, and let's say the billing city from the account table. So this is what the columns that you specified. These are the columns that you're interested in. From which object? Then this is the account object. So what will it return? It will return all the records because there is no condition, there is no filter you have applied. If you execute, it will return all the records and it will only return the ID field, the name field, and the billing city field from the account object. So you can see here, this is the ID column, the name column, and the billing city. Similarly, let's say you wanted to calculate the total number of records that are available in the contact object. So you can use select, you can use something like count from the contact. So this is going to give you the total number of records that are available in the contact object. So let's go ahead and execute. So we have a total of 20 records. So let's say you wanted to calculate how many records are there in the account. You can specify them using select count from the account. So it's going to give you 13. So total number of records that are available are 13 here. So let's say you wanted to go ahead and fetch the first name and the account name from the contact. So the thing here is, if you go to the contact, so let's say if you go to a particular contact, here, if we wanted to go ahead and fetch the contact's first name and we wanted to fetch the account name as well. So this is the account name and then this is the first name. So if you wanted to go ahead and fetch this information, how we're going to do it through the query? So we are going to specify select. So the first thing is, from the contact table, the first name is the field that I wanted to select. And then from the contact table, we have a relationship with the account table. And from the account, we're going to go to the name. So we can also specify something like this. Okay, so there is a relationship between contact and the account object. And then we wanted the first name field. And then we wanted the name of the account. From which table? From the contact table. So this particular query will give you the first name of the contact and the account name for that particular contact. So if you go ahead and execute this, you can see the first name it is going to give you, and it is also going to give you the account name related to that particular contact. So these are the examples of the field list. So most important point, the user should have the read level permissions for that particular field that you wanted to view. And also you should mention the field name as correct. So let's say if we have messed it up and instead of first name I said something like fourth name. So this is going to give me an error because see, it's not going to find, it's not able to figure out what is this fourth name. There is no field with the name fourth name. Okay, so you have to specify the correct field name as well. So the next thing that we have is the type of the field. This is a polymorphic relationship field in the object type or a polymorphic field in a parent of object type that can reference multiple objects. So for example, let's say there is a relationship field called what, which is available in the event object. So there is an object called event and there is a relationship field called what, which is available. This event can be an account event, it can be a campaign event, or it can be an opportunity event. So it can be any of these. So what I mean by this is, let me explain you what type of field is. So let's say we go to this particular account record. Okay, we go to the account record. And inside of this particular account record, let's say I have created an event. How can you can go ahead and create a new event here, and you can specify the subject of the event is, let's say, call, and then hit the save button. So now you have created one event in the account object. Let's go ahead and create another event in the opportunity object as well. So we're going to go ahead and go to the opportunities. Let's go ahead and click on one of the opportunity here. So let's say we go to this opportunity, and here also we create an event. So both of them are event object. Okay, we have created event object, but one is for account object and the other one is for the opportunity object. So let's say this one is meeting. So go ahead and hit the save button. And let's say for opportunities, we're going to go ahead and create another event. So let's say one event for account, and for let's say another record, I'm going to go ahead and create another event here. And let's say this is for send letter or quote, and then hit the save button. So now we have total of 3 events. See, one of the event is of type account and the rest of the 2 events are of type opportunities. Okay, so this is like a polymorphic kind of relationship, because what can be of an account type or it can be opportunity type. So now let's go ahead and see how the type of field is going to get used. So we're going to go back to a developer console. So here you can say something like select type of. So what is the type of what? When it is of account, so it can either be of account, then you can return me the phone and the number of employees. And when it is opportunity, then you can return me the amount, the close date, otherwise, else, name and email. Okay, so sorry, and from the event. So now this is the query. So we have select the type of what, when account, then we have phone number, number of employees, when opportunity, then we have amount and close date, else block is name and email, and from event. So from which table we're talking about? From the event table. Now it is going to go ahead and see if there are any events available in account. It's going to go ahead and find it. If there is any events available in opportunity, it's going to go ahead and find it. So how many events are there? We have created 3 events. So what should be the output of the program of this query? The output is going to be 3. So let's go ahead and execute. You can see that the output is 3 here. If you wanted to see the result, you can even see that if you go to your open execute anonymous window here, we can write the same query. And the object, we can put it here, the list of S object. The result of the query, we can put it here. And then we can do a system.debug statement. And this statement is going to go ahead and display the value of S. So it's going to go ahead and display all the events. So it's going to provide the event IDs. So let's go ahead and execute this program. If you go to the debug only section here, you will see it has returned you all the IDs. So 2 of the IDs belong to one object, that is the account. So this is one ID we have. Then you have the next 2 belongs to the other object. So that is the opportunity. So it has given you back the all the 3 different events that it has created. See, this is for one, and then these are for the next 2. The opportunity, and this one is for the account object. So it has returned you all the 3 events. So this is what the type of is going to use. When expression is also a part of the type of. If you remember, when a clause of the form when object, then the field list. So if this is when, then these are the field lists. If this is when, then these are the field lists. You can have n number of whens here. You can specify when. If it's contact, then this is else. If none of them, then this is going to be the else block. You don't have to go deeper into the type of fields. So the else expression is similar. A clause of the form else. This clause is optional also, and it is used inside of the type of. So when expression and else expression are the part of the type of. Filter scope. This specifies the filter scope for limiting the results of the query. So if you wanted to go ahead and filter the results, and if you wanted to, instead of returning back all the records from a particular object, you can filter them. Condition expression. Now this condition expression is, let's say, if you wanted to find out all the contacts related to this particular account, so that you're filtering it out. So you're using a where. If the where is specified, then it determines which rows and values in the specified object to filter against. So you can specify that, okay, these are the only columns, these are the only rows I'm interested in. So let's say there's an example here. I wanted to go ahead and search for contact name starting with the letter S. So that is like, you're not returning every record from the contact table. You're only returning the records which are starting with the letter S. So that is another a condition expression. Okay, so if there is a where condition, then it is going to go ahead and filter the results based on the condition. If the condition meets, only those records are going to be returned for which the condition meets. If there is no where clause, then everything will be returned from that particular object. So all the rows will be returned if there is no where clause. Filtering expression. If with data category is specified, the query only returns the matching records that are associated with the specified data categories and are visible to the user. So if it is unspecified, then the query returns the matching records that are visible to the user. So if you're using with data category, then the query only returns the matching records that are associated with the specified data categories and are visible to the user. If you have unspecified, then the query is going to return the matching records that are visible to the user. So it is not going to go ahead and look for a specific data category. The with data category clause only filters the objects of the type question and the knowledge article version. So these are the only two objects this with data category will be used for. One is the question and the another one is the knowledge article version to query the articles. Field group by list. A field group by list. A group by clause is used with aggregate functions to summarize the data and enable you to roll up query results rather than having to process the individual records in your code. So this is what the purpose of the group by clause is. So let's take an example. Let's say going back to a developer console. So we have something called select the status, comma, the lead source and the count. So let's say we wanted to count from the lead object and we are using this group by clause and we'll say group by lead source. So what this group by clause is used for? The group by clause is used with aggregate functions to summarize the data and enable you to roll up the query results. Having to process the individual records in your code, you can use this group by clause where you can summarize the data and you can roll up the query results. So this is how. So let's say from the lead table, we have these are the different fields that are present. So if you go to the leads, we have a field called lead source. If you go ahead and look, there is a field called lead source and there is a field called name and the lead source is this one. So what it is doing, we're grouping it on the basis of the lead source here. So let's go ahead and see what will be the output of the program. So now what will happen is go ahead and execute. From the lead, group by the lead source. So this is what the query is. Let's go ahead and execute. Let me go ahead and close these. Okay, so this is the group by query here. So now what's going to be the output? As you can see here, the output has been grouped. So all the different types of lead source. So we have 7 records where the lead source is web. We have 4 records where the lead source is phone inquiry. Then we have 4 records where the lead source is partner referral, and then we have 7 records where the lead source is purchase list. So, and then there are 3 records where the lead source field is empty. So we have total of how many records in the lead table? So we have total of 25 records. So now if you go ahead and count it, you're going to go ahead and see select the count. We're going to go ahead and count from the lead. So there should be total of 25 records should be there. And you can see here the records are 25. So the group by clause, what did it do? We have grouped based on the lead source. So this was the query. Select the lead source, count the name from the lead, group by lead source. So we are grouping it by the lead source. So all the records which have the same lead source, we have grouped them into one. So we have counted how many different types of lead source we have available and we have seen how many records are available in each of those lead source types. So this is what is the example of the group by. So now the next thing we have is field subtotal group by list. So this particular clause specifies a list of up to 3 fields separated by the commas that are used to group the query results. The results include extra subtotal rows for the group data. So this is the purpose of this particular clause. So let's take an example here. So let's say we want the status, then we have is the lead source, then we have is the count, and then we are using an alias here from which table? From the lead table. So we are doing the same thing, group by, and then we have roll up. Once you see the example result, you'll be able to get it what I'm talking about. So we have roll up here. So what it's going to do here, if you're going to go ahead and run this program, see, it has based on the status and the lead source, it has given us the total number. So basically, when the status is open and not contacted and the lead source is empty, for this particular condition, we have 3 records. When the status is open, not contacted, and the lead source is web, then we have 1 record. If the status is open, not contacted, and the lead source is phone and query, we have 1 record. So these are the groupings it has done. So it is done on the basis of the status. So we have grouped by the status and the lead source here. And what it has done, it is roll up and then it has given you the total counts for the records where the grouping is based on the status and the lead source. So for each particular status and for the particular lead source, this is the total number of leads that are available. So for particular status where the lead source is equals to web and the status is open not contacted, we have 1 record available in the lead object. Now the next we have is the having condition expression. So if the query includes a group by clause, then this condition expression filters the records that the group by returns. So if you wanted to go ahead and filter the results that came back from the grouping, then you can use this having clause. So let's do an example of that. For example, select the name, comma, the count from the account table. We are grouping by the name. So we are going to go ahead and group by the name having. So we are saying having the count greater than 1. So if there are multiple records available with the same name, we are going to go ahead and fetch only those records where the name are kind of same. And so let's go ahead and execute it. So there is no records which have the same name. So let's go back here, go to our account record and create an account with the same name. So let's say hello ABC. Let's go ahead and create another account with the name hello ABC. Hit the save button. So now if you go ahead and run the query, what it's going to do, it's going to go ahead and give you back the response. See, it gave you hello ABC. You just have to refresh it. Hello ABC and count ID is 2. So this is going to be the, so because since we have 2 records with the same name, that's why it gave you the total of those 2 records. So let's go ahead and create another account record, let's say with the same name as hello ABC, and hit the save button. So now this time it's going to go ahead and give you this, the hello ABC, and the count will be 3. So let's go ahead and execute this. So now the count is 3. Now let's say if you have other account, not this hello ABC, let's say we create a copy of another account. Let's say we have an account called Dixon. This is another account. So let's go ahead and create a new account with the same name. And then we're going to go ahead and learn about what this having is doing. So when you have a grouping, if the query includes a group by clause, this conditional expression filters the records that the group by returns. So after the grouping has been done, if you wanted to filter more, then you can use this particular method. So now let's go ahead and execute it. This time it's going to go ahead and return you 2 rows. One is for the Dixon and the other one is for the hello ABC. So this is the next clause that we have. This is also an optional clause. Then filter order by the list. This particular clause specifies a list of 1 or more fields separated by the commas that are used to order the query results. For example, you can query for contacts and order the results by last name in alphabetical order. So let's say if you wanted to order them according to the alphabetical order, then you can use this particular clause here. So how to use it? Let's take an example. So let's go back to our developer console, and here let's take an example of the order by. So let's say we have select the ID. We wanted to select the last name and the first name. From which table? Let's say from the contact object. Order by. So let's say we're going to go ahead and order by the last name. And then let's say if the last name is same and we wanted to see which one should come first, then the next thing would be first name will be taken into account. So we are going to go ahead and order these records by the last name. So let's go ahead and execute it. So as you can see here, if you go ahead and take a look at these results, you can see here that okay, they have been organized in the ascending order. So first we have B, then we have D, then we have letter F, then G, then J, L, and N, P. So this is what the order is. But if you just remove this order by clause, what will happen is it's going to go ahead and give you the results in a very in unordered fashion. So their first is G, then we have is F, then we have Rogers, then we have Young. So they are unorganized. They're not been alphabetically sorted. So if you wanted to sort them, then you can go ahead and use this order by clause, and then you can order them by the last name. So now they have been ordered them by the last name. If you wanted to go ahead and order them by the first name, then you can go ahead and specify that as well. So the first name and then order by the last name. As you can see here, the Tim now will go down. So as you can see, it is based on the first name. So Andy, so first A, then we have B, then we have E, we have J, then we have is L. So this is in alphabetical order. So this is the another clause which is available for the SOQL statements. So these are an overview about all the different clauses that are available. We learned about group by, we learned about order, we learned about having, we learned about type of, etc. So these are the different clauses that are available with data category, where condition. Limit is basically if you wanted to limit the number of the rows that you have to return. Offset is number of rows to skip. That is for the offset. So group by, you can do it. Let's say you wanted to group by the status and the lead source. We did it with data category, then using the scope. So these are the different clauses that are available, optional clause that are available with the SOQL syntax. So I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thank you.